It's extremely important, especially when the instructional coaching position is new to a building, or a new coach arrives at a building, that the staff, administration, and new coach work on a clear definition as to the role of the instructional coach. Trust is important in coaching, and trust can be built more rapidly when coaching is defined and the coach's behaviors match the definition, rather than not having it defined and teachers trying to interpret the definition from watching the coach. I have found this continuum with evaluation on the left and peer coaching on the right to be effective in helping people understand different observer-teacher relationships. So far on the left, you have what I have identified as the narrowest definition of evaluation. And in that narrow definition of evaluation, someone is observing a teacher's behavior, teacher's performance, and judging it against some type of outside criteria that the evaluator brings into the setting. If I go all the way to the right of the continuum, in peer coaching, I am now dealing totally with teacher choice. So in peer coaching, the teacher is deciding who comes into my classroom, when does that person come into my classroom, and what's the purpose of the person being in the classroom. So those are the two ends of the spectrum. Right in the middle of the spectrum, I've placed supervision. And supervision is often the role that building administrators describe that they play. Being that as a supervisor, I'm working with both sides of the continuum. Sometimes I'm dealing with the evaluation process, and sometimes I'm dealing with the teacher-directed request of coaching. And then halfway between supervision and peer coaching, I've placed the term mentoring. And mentoring is generally identified as someone who has a background or experience working with someone who doesn't have that particular background experience. So in most cases in schools, it's seen as the new teacher working with the experienced teacher. However, I share, if we looked at technology, it could be the new teacher working with the experienced teacher. In other words, the difference in role is based on the background and experience that the mentor brings to the setting or the situation. So if you look at that continuum, if you begin on the left with evaluation and you move to the right of peer coaching, you're moving towards increasing teacher control of the agenda. In other words, what it is that we're exploring. So in evaluation, the agenda is controlled by either the evaluator or the evaluation process that's being used. As we move from evaluation to supervision, the teacher's agenda begins to enter the picture. As we move to mentoring, the teacher's agenda enters the picture more. When we move all the way to peer coaching, then the teacher is truly controlling the agenda and what it is that's being discussed and explored in the peer coaching process. So in defining instructional coaching, I frequently use the term that instructional coaches work with half of the continuum. I see building administrators as being responsible for the whole continuum. In other words, the building administrator is often responsible for the evaluation, supervision, mentoring, and coaching of a teacher. I sometimes call the administrator head coach. meaning that the administrator may not be providing the coaching services, but is responsible to see that the coaching does occur. The instructional coach I'm describing as having half of the continuum. That is, sometimes the instructional coach is peer coaching. And they're peer coaching anytime that the teacher seeks out the coach and the teacher defines what role she wants the coach to play in the classroom. The coach moves more into that mentor role anytime the coach is sharing information with the teacher that the teacher did not necessarily request. Anytime the coach is going into a teacher's classroom where you haven't been invited by the teacher to be in the classroom, then you're more in that mentoring role than you are in the peer coaching role. Now, in most cases, instructional coaches don't play any role in evaluation, but I see the instructional coach getting very close to supervision when an administrator strongly recommends that a teacher work with a coach. So if an administrator in the evaluation process identifies an area where the teacher needs to improve, and the administrator makes a recommendation that the teacher works with the coach, while the coach doesn't have an evaluation role, the teacher often responds to the coach close to that supervisory line. So it's important for instructional coaches to develop their trust with teachers by staying in a clear role. So if the teacher comes and invites you into their classroom, more in that peer coaching role, it's critical to stay on the teacher's agenda. But it's also important if the instructional coach's job descriptions requires coaching that hasn't been requested, that the administration and the leadership of the school clearly define that the coach will play those different roles. I hope this continuum might assist you in defining the roles both among the administrator and the coach and with staffs.